Hello there and welcome to today's session of a Lunch and Learn Live as part of the Productivity Coach YouTube channel. My name is Stuart Ridout. I'm the Productivity Coach and I am a Customer Success Manager in Modern Work at Microsoft. So I'm really excited to have people join us today and for you to come and watch and take part in this Lunch and Learn Live. So remember, it is an interactive session, so if you do have any questions about meetings or anything around that, then please pop them into the chat and I'll try and answer them as I go through. But today I'm going to be looking at how we can create meetings, but secure them in a way that kind of maybe only gives certain permission to certain people, etc., and make sure at the end of the meeting, especially where we've got those visitors who come in for the odd meeting as part of a recurring meeting series, that they are kind of kicked out and they don't get to see the chat, etc. So let's kick off. So within Microsoft Teams, there are two different types of meetings, really. There are kind of ad hoc meetings, which we would have as normal meetings that we would have had in the past. And then we have meetings that exist in channels. So slightly different ways that these are kind of handled. So I think it's important just to kind of kick off with that. So a team meeting, which is just a normal meeting, is the same as we would have had previously. Everybody who gets invited to that kind of behaves in the same way. We all get access to the chat. What's interesting here is depends on how we share files and what happens to the chat and things like this. So where we share files, they're stored in OneDrives. And all of the chat is kind of stored behind the scenes. Now, if we contrast that to a channel meeting, now channel meetings are, you can still invite people who aren't members of a team or a channel within a team, but the difference about channel meetings is all of the chat gets stored within the channel. And all of the files, if files are added to that meeting, they also get stored within the channel. So it's great where we've got a recurring meeting series where we want to keep all of the conversation all in one place. Now, the downside about that is that, or the upside, depending on how you see it, is that if you invite a non-member of that team, so let's say that you've got, I'm having my senior leadership team meeting that's every week, and then I invite somebody to come and just do a presentation, they can't see the chat that happens because they're not a member of the team and therefore the channel. So that may be a disadvantage if you want them to be able to see the chat. So it may be that you might need to just kind of relay things that are happening in that chat to them. Or you might be able to use that as your advantage, because what it means is that they can't see any of the chat which is happening. Now, just as we talk about chat, there are some changes coming to the way that chat will be handled. So if you have access to the message center, I would just have a look at that because there's going to be some new options that are coming, and your message center in the Office 365 admin portal will have details about timelines, what that means for your organization, etc. So I would definitely recommend you to check that out. And if you don't have access to the message center, but you are somebody who probably should have access to the message center, and your IT teams are saying, well, you can't have access because I'll have to give you admin access, there's a great feature within the Office 365 message center, which allows you to synchronize the message center with a planner board. So they could give you access to the planner board. And I've seen a number of customers who've synchronized their message center through into a planner board, and then they've run a weekly or fortnightly meeting, something like this, with all different parties who have kind of some responsibility for change there, and then they can track those through as actions through on that planner board. So that might be something that you might want to suggest to your IT admins. But let's dig in then. So let's have a look at my screen here. So this should be something that you'll probably be familiar with if you're setting up meetings. So you could be setting up meetings here within the Teams client itself. Now, me personally, I set almost all of my meetings up through the Teams client. I very rarely now set up meetings within Outlook, and I do that most of the time. And the reason why is because I can create meetings here by just hitting that new meeting button. But actually, let's say that I was having a chat here with Miriam. Okay, here's Miriam. say, you know, can we meet, and let's about the thing. So let's just say that Miriam and I had been going back and forth having a conversation, and I'm just saying, or she said, can we meet about the thing or whatever. There's a really great button down here that says schedule a meeting. And we can click that and it will take the people. So if there's multiple people in the chat, it takes all of those people, takes that into an invite. And you can still use things like the scheduling assistant, etc., to see when you're both available. We obviously get these lovely indicators here that says when people are available. And you can just, so say, meet about the thing. There we go. And let's put that next week at some point. There we go. So really easy to kind of, and again, not switching context. So we see that when we talk to users, it's about switching out context and it disrupts their flow and things like this. So just being able to go from a chat, just click that one-click button to go and create a meeting and then come back. It all works out just perfectly for that. So really, a really great idea there. But I'm going to jump back to the calendar, which is, as I say, where I create most of my meetings. So I'm going to create a meeting here. Here we go. And I'm going to say that this is the IT board meeting. There we go. And I'm going to invite some people. So I'm going to invite Miriam. So she is internal to my organization. I'm going to invite Adele. But I'm also going to invite a third party. So from outside my organization. There we go, that one there. And I'm going to send that off. Now, from here, we've got a whole load of options on how we can control what happens in that meeting. So regardless of whether you've scheduled the meeting through the Teams client or whether you've gone through Outlook, you've still got all of these same options. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that up. And now, if you've opened it up if you've scheduled it in Outlook, sorry, then you can just open it up there and you will have an option here that says meeting options. But for me, I'm opening it up in Teams and I've also got that meeting options button up there. So I can click that button and what that will do is open a browser session. So here's my browser session. There you go. And this provides me with a whole load of options on how I can control the behavior of people within that meeting. So firstly is on who can bypass the lobby. So you may have seen this where you've joined other organizations meetings. You may have been held in a lobby where you've been requested to wait. So here I can click this drop down here. So I can say everybody can bypass the lobby. So if I'm running a session and I'll put my hand up, we've done this a few times where I've run a session and it's been for lots of externals and things like this. And they've all got funneled into the lobby and you're trying to run the session and it keeps pinging up that somebody's waiting in the lobby, somebody's waiting in the lobby. So changing this to everyone will alleviate that because everybody will just come straight into the meeting. I could say that people in my organization or trusted organization and guests. So those are if we're kind of federating with other organizations or if somebody is a guest within my tenant, they can come in there. The next one down is just saying just people who are in my organization and people who've been invited in as guests into my tenant. And lastly, if you want to just have complete control here, you can say only me. So I'm the only person who can get in via the lobby. Nobody else can. Now, what I would say at this point is just use this option with caution, because if for whatever reason, let's say that you're ill, and you couldn't make that session or something happens, some unforeseen circumstance, which means you can't make that session. If that is what you've selected, then nobody else can start the meeting because they will all be held in the lobby. So lots of organizations, they normally have ones that are like this, that say people in my organization and guests, but you've got those choices. Then down here, we've got a setting around callers bypassing the lobby. So this is for people who are dialing into that session. So people who are coming in, do we want callers just to be able to come in or do we want them to be held in the lobby too? So again, I can say, no, I want them all to be held into a lobby because quite often you don't know whether a caller is internal or external to your organization. So I can switch that on or off. And then this one here is about announcing when callers join or leave. So again, that is a prompt for people on the call to hear whether people have joined or left. If you're joining through a normal client, you won't get that because you'll be able to see that coming up on screen. So we'll get those messages. So I can say yes or no, depending on what I feel here. So the bottom, so quite often I see that the lobby is starting to get used by people. Down here is where kind of people don't always start to tweak those settings. And there are some really great use cases on why you would use those. So this one here is who can present. And normally it is set to everyone. But again, we can say just people in my organization are presenters, or only specific people are presenters, or only me. So again, if you want that complete control, you could do that. Now, what does that mean for you in real terms? In terms of what does it mean to be a presenter? So there are pages that show you what the presenter role does. I'm just dragging that up. There's a great page here. Let me just pull this across here. There we go. And this page here shows you what the roles of people are who are in a team meeting. So normally we have 3 roles. We've got the organizer in a meeting, we've got presenters, and we've got attendees. So everybody can speak and share video within that session. Everybody can participate in meeting chat. And only presenters and organizers can share content. So if you're an attendee, you can't share content. Everybody can browse through a PowerPoint file if we're doing PowerPoint sharing. But down here, we can see here that only presenters can take control of someone else's PowerPoint presentation. Only presenters can mute other presenters, other participants. Only kind of presenters can prevent attendees from unmuting themselves, remove participants, admit people from the lobby, change the roles of other participants, etc. Now, in most cases, everybody who comes into a meeting has got that presenter role. So even if you have, and I get this quite often, where I go into a customer meeting and I've been held in the lobby, but then once I've been admitted into that meeting, I see all of those lobby notifications so I can let other people into that meeting. And sometimes that's a blessing and sometimes that's a curse. Now, if you were not a presenter, if I had just been admitted as an attendee, then I wouldn't even be aware of who's coming into the lobby. So again, from a kind of this security aspect of saying, well, actually, I've got 100 people in this session. I don't want them to be able to admit other people in. I still want to have control over who comes into that session. If you have given everybody the presenter role, they can see who's waiting, they can prevent people from coming in, and they could admit people from coming in. But also, and again, in a professional workplace, this obviously doesn't happen, but everybody's got the ability to mute other participants, to mute everyone, etc. You'll notice that some of these are only for the organizer, so things like download the attendance report and starting those breakout rooms are only for the organizer at the moment. But things that are also things like spotlighting videos. Obviously, everyone can pin and unpin videos to make it work for them. But in terms of spotlighting, only a presenter can do that or an organizer. Disabling attendees' microphones, inviting other people, and crucially for lots of people, starting and stopping recording. So think really carefully about who you want to have those roles within your meeting. And so, you might say, well, actually, as a default, we're going to make just people in my organization. And you can change it within the meeting. It's not set in stone all of the time, but you can change it as you go along. So I could say people in my organization. Again, I could just pick specific people, or I could just say me. Now, this bottom one here is a really new setting, which is around allowing attendees to unmute themselves. So sometimes some people refer to this as hard mute. And in terms of an example here, I would say, if you imagine and this could be an internal session as well. You may have been to this kind of session where we've got a large meeting, maybe 200 people, even in an internal session, and people have accidentally unmuted themselves, or they've joined and it hasn't muted them at that point. and you've got there and the speaker's going, can somebody go on mute? If you're not presenting, can you be on mute? And all of these things, and somebody's furiously trying to scrub through the attendee list to find that. So that setting, allow attendees to unmute, is how you can prevent that happening. So basically, anyone who comes in with an attendee role. So again, you do have to use this in combination with this setting above here. But anyone who comes in with an attendee role has an enforced mute, so they can't unmute themselves. They can only unmute themselves with permission from a presenter. So in my use case today, I'm going to leave it as people in my organization because I want this third party person to come in and have this enforced mute. Okay, I'm going to actually, let me just switch across and say that attendees can't unmute themselves. Perfect, and I can save that. Okay, and that's, get rid of that now. So that doesn't change anything from the invitees' perspective. It's all the same for them. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start that meeting now. Let me just drag my meeting window across. There it is. I'm just going to go on mute. Perfect. I'm going to start that meeting. There we go. So this should be the meeting screen that you're quite familiar with. Here, so we've got our participant panel, we've got our chat, we've got the raise hand feature, breakout rooms because I'm the meeting organizer here, and then other actions here. So if I show the participant panel, then I can see who's been invited, whether they've responded or whatever, and I can drag them into the meeting. But also here in this ... this ellipsis option here, I can see whether we allow people to unmute themselves at that point. So what I can do is I could say, I'm going to allow people to unmute themselves at this point, or I'm not going to allow them to unmute themselves, and I'll show you how that works in practice. So let me just pick in some of my other people that I've invited and just bring them into the session. Just bear with me. I will just bring in Miriam here. There we go. I'm just going to keep Miriam on mute. We should see her come in. And similarly, I'm going to go to my external. There we go. That's Miriam's come into our session. And just in another window, I'll bring my external in. He will come into that in a moment as well. Now, what's interesting is, so I can see here that Miriam is in, and she's come in as a presenter. Now, if I wanted to make Miriam into an attendee, I can do this by going to the ellipsis on her name there, and I can click Make an Attendee, and that will change her role. So let me just bring Miriam back across there. Make this window a bit smaller. There we go. In fact, I'll tap it on there and bring Miriam so we're side by side there. So you can see that actually as Miriam, I got a little pop-up that said your role has been changed to attendee. Let's turn this camera off. There we go. Now, if I wanted to change her back to being a presenter, I can click ... and I can click Make a Presenter. And then she will come in as a presenter, which is really great. There we go, and it's told her there that she's a presenter. Now, if I let me just go make her back to being an attendee again. There we go. And you can see here that as Miriam, her mute icon is grayed out, so she can't actually even unmute herself. So if there was the situation where Miriam did want to talk, then what she can do is she can raise her hand. So that raise hand feature is now starting to come into its own because it does more than just allow people to put their hand up to ask a question. So here, Miriam's put her hand up. She wants to talk. There's my Miriam window. Make that smaller again. There we go. So currently grayed out here. So if I said, actually, yes, I'm going to allow you to ask a question as a meeting presenter or the organizer, I can now say allow to unmute. And we can see here, Miriam has had a message saying that she's been given permission to unmute her mic. So this is not me unmuting her mic. It still has to be her decision to unmute herself. But we can unmute the mic there. So now as Miriam, she can unmute that mic, say whatever she wants to say. Oh, there we go. Almost got a bit of feedback. And then she can remute herself. So she now has that permission. And if I want to retract that permission, then I can just go back again and say, don't allow her to unmute rather. And again, that it just popped up there momentarily. Something came up there to say you no longer have the permission to unmute. So you can see things here that are not a facility for Miriam here because she is an attendee in the meeting. So she can't share screens and things like this. So if I wanted her to have any of that, then I can do that. I just wanted to showcase the lobby feature as well. So let me just go to meeting details. I'm going to copy that join link. I'm just going to join here as somebody from outside my organization. There we go. So we can just see what that looks like in terms of the lobby. So I'm going to open up here, and as the presenter or the meeting organizer, I will get a lobby notification. It will just pop up in a moment. But again, because Miriam is an attendee, then she won't. So let me just go to join here. And there we go. So now we can see that the lobby notifications come up for me as the either the organizer or the presenter. But if I just switch back to Miriam, so Miriam she doesn't have that message. She is completely unaware that anybody is available in the lobby. If she goes onto the participant pane, she doesn't see that at all. She only sees those people who've been invited. So I'm going to now admit my other persona into the meeting. Great. So the last thing I really want to kind of talk about was about chat, because obviously I can write here, here is a chat. There we go. Here is a chat. Perfect. And everybody, regardless of whether they are Miriam or whether they're my external, they will get access to that. So here's my external. Okay. Now, the problem that we have here is that I kind of come in for my meeting, I do my bit, and at the end of that, I leave. There I go. I've now left. I'm not sure why I've ended up. Oh yeah, I've gone from the lobby. Oh, that's odd that I've ended up in the lobby. Let me just try that again. Let me just join that meeting again. Not quite sure what happened there. Right, so I'm back in the meeting. And let me just leave that again. There we go. I've just hung up. Right. Perfect. And I've now left that meeting. Now, so the interesting thing here is that you might be able to, you'd be able to see the rest of the chat going on. So if Miriam kind of comes and puts a thing saying, or someone says, that was a boring presentation. 10 minutes of my life I want back. Obviously, this would be very unprofessional, but previously this would have stopped the person from accessing, or the person would have been able to access that chat. So to stop that happening, you're able to kick someone out of that chat. Now, this is where we're starting to see, and I mentioned at the top of the call, that we're starting to see some differences in the way that chat behavior works. So what we can see here is actually, even though that chat message happened, because I was an ad hoc guest, I wasn't invited, because I just came in, I just got the link there, it's actually already kicked me straight out of the chat. So because I wasn't on the meeting roster as an invitee. But if Adele joined that session, so let's just start up a browser here, just so we can demonstrate this. And I'll just sign in here if you just bear with me for one moment. So as I say, if you want to get a little bit more detail on how that meeting experience is starting to manifest itself, then definitely go in and check in on the message center within your Office 365 portal, because it does tell you in there what those changes in behavior are. Typically, I don't have the password for that one. Let's try somebody else. Let's try and invite Nesta. Let's bring Nesta into this session. There we go. And his password does work. What I'm going to do, let's just do this properly. So I'm going to invite Nesta into there so that he's definitely part of that meeting roster. There we go. Okay, so hopefully Nesta will get that in a moment. I've got to the point where I think I'm just running so many meeting sessions here that that my poor computer is just really wanting to slow down. So we're just invite there. So there are a couple of ways that you could remove somebody from a meeting if you want to make sure that that meeting chat doesn't kind of leak. So one of the ways that you can do here is remove someone from the meeting at the roster. So if you've got a visitor who's coming in, you've got a recurring series, they're just coming in for a one-off, or they're only coming in for a portion of your meeting, what you might want to say is, thank you very much for your time. Don't leave the meeting, I'm going to remove you now. Say you've advised, whatever, and then you can just click there to remove them from that meeting. It's a bit of a cultural change, just to kind of say, don't leave, I'm gonna remove you. But if you use that option, then you make sure that they've actually been removed properly from the meeting, and they won't be able to access that chat any longer. The other way that you can do this, and Nesta is just going to come into this meeting in just a moment, is if you go to that board meeting there, in my calendar, in my Teams calendar. There we go, Nesta's just coming in as well. There we go there. You're able to see who's that. Sorry, I didn't mean to click there. So and I could have gone on to chat. Oh, that's what I wanted to do. Go to my board meeting. Apologies. I meant to go to chat. Go to my chat and I can click my participants here. And then when I hover over their names, I can just click there and do that. So let's just bring this all back together. So let's just pop Nesta. Let's just post a message here so we can see what's happening here. So hi all. So here's my message from Nesta. Here he is here. There he is. And let me go back to my one. There you go. So I'm in the meeting. I can say, there we go. Thanks for your time. Perfect there. And now if Nesta leaves the meeting, Hold on, who am I here? I'm Miriam. I need to just find my Nesta meeting. There you go, there's Nesta. So if I leave the meeting here, because Nesta was invited into that meeting, he is still part of that chat, so we can still see that he's part of that chat there. So as I say, well, that was interesting. And the problem is that quite often people will go on obliviously chatting, and a person who wasn't a member of that meeting will still continue to get that chat. So as we see here, I can go to my the chat section here, go to my participant panel. So I clicked in the wrong place again. Apologies. I'm clicking around here, and my poor laptop's being slow. There we go. Right, and click on my participants there. There's Nesta. I can click the cross there. That will remove him from the chat. Now, if I go to being Nesta, wherever he's gone, there he is. It's now sent him a thing saying that he's no longer a member of the chat. So apologies, I got myself a little bit confused there. All got a bit of a confuddle. So many windows, I've got myself confused. So hopefully, even though I got a bit confused with my multiple personalities at the end there, this has helped you just show you about some of those configurations, some of the ways that you can use the settings in meetings within Teams to really make it a secure meeting that's in control, that you're in control of. You know who's in, you know who's presenting, and you know who can give permission for other people to come in as well. So hopefully that's something that you found really useful. Remember, we have tips on Tuesdays. I've just popped out a new video that came out Tuesday this week, which was about having presenter view in Microsoft Teams, which is part of the private preview features. So hopefully you found this session useful. Please recommend it to someone else. Make sure we hit subscribe and like and all of those great things. If you do have any requests for other Lunch and Learn sessions, then please pop it into the chat here or message me. I'm on Twitter at Stuart Ridout, or just leave me a message in one of my other videos. But other than that, have a wonderful weekend and stay productive. Bye-bye.